Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat's Torah reading is Parashat Nasso. So while I want to focus on the idea of counting, I want to begin by just mentioning the priestly blessing, Birkat Kohanim. The priestly blessing, the blessing that we still use in our synagogues, in our homes, originates in this week's Torah reading. It is a blessing that has been used countless numbers of times, hundreds of thousands, millions of times over the centuries in our tradition. And what is amazing about that is for all of the people that have been a part of that, either as the person doing the blessing or the person receiving the blessing, it is written in the singular for each individual. Each individual person receives that blessing on their own. Even when it is done to a group, it is done in the singular, to illustrate for us, to emphasize for us that no matter how large the group is, each individual receives their own blessings. I think about that idea when I approach this week's Torah reading, and really the beginning of the book of Bamidbar, the beginning of the book of Numbers. This week, Parashat Nasso is the second Torah reading in the book of Numbers, and we read again about a census. Last week there was a census of the nation. This week there is a census of the Levite tribe. Now, in the ancient world, people were counted by their leaders. People wanted to know how big their army was. People wanted to know how large their economic force was, meaning the number of workers that they could field, that they could put out into the world. What does Judaism say about counting? Judaism has a very conflicted view of counting. We all know, or many of us know at least, from our time coming to Daily Minyan, that counting is looked down upon. Of course, we know that we need 10 adult Jews to say certain prayers, but we know that Judaism says you're not supposed to count Jews. So we count other things. We count feet. We sing a song with 10 words in it rather than counting 1, 2, 3. And why is that? Because we don't want to turn someone, an individual, into a number. We don't want to reduce someone to just a number. That's a powerful idea, and it's an idea that I completely agree with. And yet there are times when God commands a census, as opposed to when human beings command a census. When God commands a census, that census is celebrated and is a good thing. So why is that? Rashi, commenting on the census in last week's Torah reading, says the following. It says, when God commands a census, he does it mitoch hibatan lefanav mone'atam kol sha'a, because God loves us, because God adores us and wants to see each human being, wants to count us, wants to make sure that we're still there, wants to show God's love for each one of us. I think that's what the idea is in the Unatana Tokef prayer on the high holidays, when we have this incredible vision of passing before God as animals being led by a shepherd, and we say these words, V'chol ba'ei olam ya'avru lefanecha kivnei maron. All mankind pass before you, meaning God, like young sheep. As a shepherd inspects his flock, making his sheep pass under his rod, so do you cause to pass, count and number, and review the soul of every living being. V'tifkod nefesh kol chai. Each one of us is unique and is special. And no matter how many times we may count the number of people in a minyan, no matter how much concern I have for people coming back to this program and that programming, no matter how many times we count, we must never forget that each person is individual, each person has infinite value. And when we're counting, we're not really reducing you to a number. We just want to know whether we can do certain prayers or not. But we must always remember that each person is a world unto himself or herself. Each person has infinite value. As we read in Parashat Nasso, counting is sometimes allowed in Judaism, but we must never ever forget that the blessings we give each other, like Birkat Kohanim, the blessing of the priests, it is always done in the singular. to one person at a time. So too should our blessings be done and be given and be accepted one person at a time. Shabbat Shalom.